What is vitiligo? Is it a new kind of supplement? Does it happen to normal people? Can dogs get vitiligo? Does it help with bedroom dysfunction? Is vitiligo in the room with us right now? And why is it appearing in your video games? I believe the first time I saw vitiligo in a video game was in Diablo 4, when I was watching a Norwegian streamer try to make a hot necromancer with the character creator. But besides the disappointment of no knockout necro-nympho, I thought, I wonder why there's this option now in the character creator. Of course, that was the first time I saw it in a video game, but not the first time in real life, and at that point I did not put much more thought into it besides the beforehand observation. But let us not get ahead of ourselves. Let us first answer the questions at hand, in order. For through such methods we may better get the whole picture. Vitiligo is an autoimmune condition, where your immune system basically looks at the pigment-producing cells of your body and says, absolutely not, then destroys them. This usually leaves the affected area without pigment, which results in the person looking patchy or piebald. It can affect any part of the body, most commonly the skin, but can also affect the eyes and hair. In rare cases, it can lead to blindness and hearing loss, but this is less common in those with the condition. About 1% of people today have some form of vitiligo. This includes me. It is on my fingers, on these two fingers, and it also is a patch of hair on my facial hair, which just makes it look like I'm missing hair from most angles. I have a very minor case of it, though it could become worse in the future due to factors like stress, bad diet, environmental pollution, or random chance of my genetics saying, up yours, we're going to make you even whiter, boy. Severe cases of vitiligo can have drastic impacts on a person's appearance, also making them more susceptible to sunburn as an added side effect. If you want an example of someone famous with vitiligo, Michael Jackson is your man. Given that 1% of the population has it, there's about a 2.5% chance that you already know someone with it. No, vitiligo is not a supplement. It's a very strange condition that is an autoimmune disorder. Autoimmune conditions, as far as I understand, are basically your body being a bastard for no reason. Lupus, celiac disease, and vitiligo all fall under autoimmune disorders. We don't really know the cause of these disorders with any certainty. What we do know is that the number of people with these conditions is rising and rising fast, by 3 to 12% annually. The list of suspected causes is large. Pollution, medication, diet, stress, and basically everything else that causes human suffering in the modern world. Basically, if you're in bad shape, then you'll become in worse shape. Thus says God. Probably. That would be Viagra. Well, technically, since I have it, but then again, that's just me, and I am definitely not in the room with you right now. Nice socks, by the way. And now, our featured presentation. Well, first of all, every video game is me being hyperbolic. However, it is showing up in a lot of recent RPGs with in-depth character creators. There are probably several reasons why video games with in-depth character creators include vitiligo as an option now. For my part and defense, this is all pure speculation. The first reason I think is so prevalent in gaming is because it is prevalent in real life. 1% is a big number. But the levels at which you notice the condition of a person and do a double take is probably only 1% of that 1% that have it. So in reality, while it is common, it is not as extremely common as video games would have you believe. That being, cases of it being extreme are not as common as video games would have you believe. Games like The Veil Guard, Dustborn, and Baldur's Gate have characters with pretty noticeable vitiligo, and a star elf from some Netflix show also has it. But just because it is common for us to have is not a good reason for it to appear in fantasy or medieval themed media. Dustborn gets a pass because it's set in a post-apocalyptic future. But a game like Baldur's Gate and Diablo, it feels out of place. Remember what I said about autoimmune disorders becoming more common? Well, they weren't that common in the past. Even 100 years ago, they were rare. It's only in modern times that these conditions have really exploded. My whole family has an autoimmune disorder of some sort or another, but we only really discovered them about 5 years ago. Before that, we just thought we got sick often. This has not existed in the common mind, basically besides the last 5 years or so. Which is crazy to think about because millions of people suffer from these conditions. So while we, in the modern day, are immersed in these things, I don't think that that justifies bathing fantasy of a medieval flavor in them. Life does reflect art, and art reflects life, so that is fair enough. Having it in a character creator can give your hero a unique look. I think about 25% of all Minecraft skins and OCs have heterochromia, which is justified enough because it's cool. So having extra character customization of Vitiligo is not that far of a stretch. But why now of all times? Why not always have had it? Well, this brings us to reason 2 of why it is in video games. People care about nonsense now. We did not have it earlier because no one cared. It is not, in my opinion, very nice looking. It can be interesting in a sort of morbid curiosity kind of way. Some people may even like it, but for my part, it was incredibly distressing when I noticed I had it. It really messed with my head. Michael Jackson also got messed up by it mentally. He started bleaching his skin and using makeup to balance out the look. I know a story of a family friend that has it, and she never tans, so all her skin appears to be completely white and uniform. She's like a pale vampire lady. It's not a thing you really want to have, but some people with what I can only say are messed up heads are like, "Ooh, we must have that because people have that, and that will make the world more diverse and inclusive." Oh! But that's just stupid and immersion breaking. Not only was this condition less common in the past, both for just being rarer then, but also more likely to get you killed, it's also a human condition. Why does an elf or an orc have it? Why not have something else, like getting patches of fire on their flesh, or a pure black pattern instead of white? Why is the fantasy game or world being watered down with modern day human conditions? Why does it not have a unique and interesting thing specific to that world and its denizens? Well, the answer to that is reason 3. Because it's easy. Fallout 4 has a great character creator. You can plaster your character with makeup, radiation burns, give them warts, wrinkles, scars, all things that fit into the world and make sense in the setting. These customization options took the developers real work. They had to make textures that would work on multiple face structures well fitting into the game's world. Real artistic skill and technical effort were put into the character creator of Fallout. This made the game feel more alive and gave you real cool options for character creation. It also increased diversity and inclusion as well, but it did not sacrifice immersion to do this. Now, Vitiligo is really easy to add to your character creator. I make VTuber models as a hobby. I've learned a small amount of texture work from this. So here is me adding some scars to Lorthorn. Now this process did take me a little long because it required me to remember how the texture works, but it's actually a pretty straightforward process. In all things considered of adding scars, you just have to start with the establishing color line, blend it all down, and give it a proper shape. Now, scars, one of the problems with them is their transferability to other models because of how they can move around and be shaped. So after I get all the work done, finding it transferable to a different model and having it match those eyes doesn't often work. So the
texture doesn't always completely work, and so you have to make a more general, broad texture that can work on a lot of areas and map it to spots that would work better. I failed at this mapping process as they don't transfer as well onto other sets of eyes. And here's me adding vitiligo. Now again, this is a simple process of just messing with textures. This time I don't have to do any blending. I can just slap some white down on it, and it looks like what vitiligo would look like. And this is quite basic stuff. I can even then spend the remaining time getting the correct color and slapping it onto the body texture. And just having it spread out, getting some evils, making so the blotches aren't too big. And it also looks like some form of the condition one way or another. And unlike the scar, it's very easily transferred onto other models. Usually vitiligo in video game character creations is represented with a slider to increase and control the amount of the condition. This adds an extra tasty step of dishonesty to the creator. It deceives you into thinking, ooh, a slider. This character creator is awesome. I have so many options and options within those options. Sliders usually do take a lot of work to make, and they have gratifying results in a character creator. But I reckon the process for vitiligo is literally, here is the max coverage on a texture being set to solid white, here is the middle coverage, and here is the minimum, and then here is 0. Have the algorithm spool out the rest and bake it into the textures, or even just have it act as an over texture to your color set. You do this, then your in-game shadow engine and your secondary skin textures will do the rest in making it all tie together. Takes you a few days, if that, and you get to pat yourself on the back for making an extra option in the character creator. Also, it earns you brownie points for adding more inclusion and diversity into your video game. The remaining 2 reasons for why it is added to video games are more simple and yet more conjecture. I mean, most of this has been conjecture. I'm not going to do journalism or interviews. That's too much work, and speculating is just more fun. Reason 4, it's someone's fetish. You'd be surprised how often choices are made because of this. Ever watch Teen Titans Go? That lighthearted comedy brain rot cartoon is about 20% DC story, 30% actual funny jokes, and 60% fetishes. It is weird. Very weird. If you've played D&D, I bet your DM has slipped a few of their fetishes in, even if you haven't noticed that they're there. But turnaround is fair play, as your character also is a Trojan horse for your own degeneracy. That's right, I'm calling you out, Tabaxi players. Is this 100% the reason the video games have vitiligo added? No, I would say it's closer to 20% the reason. And laziness is more like 30% of the reason, with everything else sloshing around vaguely in the remaining percentages. Including reason 5 of why vitiligo is added to video games. It's now on the checklist. If one game has it, and the game did well, or the game is from a big name series, and it also happens to have a character creator, then every video game with a character creator will need to add it too. If you start stripping out options from a character creator that have been in other video games that people are used to, like a face sculptor for example, then this will annoy people. Basically, once the precedent is set, then it is to be followed. Of course, with the caveat that you have to have the resources to do so. Now, given how easy it is, I think, to implement, it will be implemented. So basically, it is now in video games because it is now in video games. Now, with that idea set out and floating about in the ether, I do hope that Western RPGs set a boob slider into their character creator. Because while I do love Eastern MMOs for this feature, I just can't get into their gameplay. So, Larian, please, next game, you know what to do. And that is why vitiligo is now in video games. I do hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you, Blush Feather. You're a great patron over on my Patreon. And yeah, let's see if that was vague enough to avoid me getting cancelled. I mean, I didn't even touch on top scar surgeries. I mean, I could really get myself into trouble. I have some spicy takes. Anyways,
Thank you all for watching, and as always, until next time, goodbye. Also, there's so much dead space above me. Behooves me to have more mic in the screen, especially without being centered. And doing this partway through a recording. Less dead space, I think, is worth the price.